Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with my good friend, colleague, business partner to some ventures, Nick Street, man.
What's up, Rich?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Glad to be here, bro. Thanks for having me.
Man. Let's tell you about yourself, where you're from, what you're doing, and what life's like for you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Born and raised in Sacramento, so I'm a young man still, turning 44 this year. But this is my 20th year, predominantly spent in mortgage business, residential mortgage lending. So it's always kind of been a passion of mine, place that I got into young age. Faced some adversity, conquered some, had some success. So now a lot of my interest and passion is in helping grow others, as you know, and you help with, right? Mm-hmm. Enjoy, an opportunity in their career the same way I did.
I love it, man. So in the game over 20 years now.
This is my 20th year.
20th year.
In the
Let's
mortgage
go, dude.
game,
Congrats,
bro.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people fizzle out, man. You went through the Great Recession.
That means like I'm just maturing.
Maturing, yeah.
Like at 20 for me, as a 20-year-old man, I had a lot to learn. So I feel like, all right, I'm 20 years in the game now. I'm just hitting my mature phase. So look out, right?
On the varsity team now, right? We're starters.
Right.
There you
Learned
go,
a few
man.
things.
Yeah, so walk me through some of those integral stages, like in the beginning, what you were doing.
Yeah, totally, dude. I got in mortgage at a time that was probably polar opposite of now, right? In terms of how people qualified, what the mortgage business was like. I mean, I was in a total call center, chop shop, like boiler room style. We literally were in a basement with no windows. People would be like, "Oh, it's nice today," and I'm like, "Is it? I haven't been outside." Like I got here at 7, I left at 7. Mm-hmm. We just grinded. A lot of what we did was the direct mail. So it was people getting these letters that said, "Hey, Rich, lower your mortgage payment this much." We got a lot of people calling us, telling us to take that letter and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. So, again, when you're 24 years old, getting those calls, you're like, you know what I mean? Like it didn't faze me. I knew I had the opportunity to earn a living doing that quite frankly, I couldn't do elsewhere, and I probably wasn't qualified to do anything else. So I went into it, again, just understanding I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was dumb and hungry and aggressive. And so I loved it, right? And I remember back then, the old heads in the mortgage game, being like, "Oh, you got to establish relationships, and you got to, talk with realtors and get involved in your community." You know what I thought? I thought like, losers, they can't close, right? These guys can't close the way I close. I don't need to do that, right? These realtors are difficult. Like these purchases, people are stressed out. I'm just going to do my thing. I'm just going to, be this elevated closer. And then what happened, right? 2007, 8, 9, 10 happened, and there literally was no business. The business that I was doing did not exist anymore. Literally, it was gone, right? So then it came complete reinvention, right? And actually go, man, those guys were right. I should have actually had some relationships. I should have invested in the community. I should have had some realtors on my team. So that's not an easy thing to just flip the switch and decide you're going to do. So it took a while, obviously to build that back up and take that on, but glad I did, right? The rest is history, as they say, right? Started with had a couple really, really, really good people on the real estate side that really helped me. And to be honest, they kind of helped validate me. And so like other realtors would use me because I had the validation of, and that's the advice I give to a lot of younger loan officers is I'm like, man, really pour into a few solid relationships, and those will compound and multiply for you because other people will see what you do within that relationship, and they'll want to have something similar with you.
So relationships were key.
Man, humongous.
Yeah.
Right? Humongous. Could not have done anything without them.
And so you got into real estate at a very impressionable age. younger than most people do get into real estate. Most
For
people
sure.
I know are getting in their late 20s, mid 30s, 40s.
So
even.
the first guy I met in mortgage was my friend's stepdad. And he was telling me, oh, I've been around forever. What you do is you get your friends and family and you create your wedding list and you send it out. And I'm like, dude, 24, all my friends are 24. They don't have mortgages. They're not buying houses. Like, I was like, this is not going to work for me. Right? So to your point, yeah, like that wasn't an option. My sphere gave me zero opportunities, right? Like even the trusted people I knew, family, they didn't trust me with their mortgage, right? Like why should they? I didn't give them, I didn't put out trustworthy vibes.
Right. What kind of vibes were you putting out?
I mean, dude, I was young. I was having fun,
Yeah.
right? I was, we had some, I grew up more in the like, oh, I'm just going to be this cocky athlete, competitive type of guy. And, which is great. But trusting somebody with a mortgage, they don't want that. Right.
I'll pick you first on the basketball team or the football team, but
hey, trusting you with the biggest debt that I'm going to have and one of the biggest, purchases of my life, maybe I want the guy that comes across more of a trustworthy advisor than, hey, I'm going to push this through for you type of vibe. So, so to your point, yeah, I mean, being young helped me a ton because I didn't have adversity to overcome, or it wasn't like, I was trained wrong. I was just spry, hungry, aggressive, ready to get out there and do whatever it took. But it also wasn't easy because I didn't have like these organic deals coming to me, right? Like I fully relied on the marketing, converting leads. If I couldn't convert, I couldn't eat.
Man, what an interesting time.
Dude, I loved it though.
Yeah.
Literally loved it. That movie Boiler Room, we literally would watch that in the office, right? Glenn Ross, like Coffees for Clothes, like that was real to us.
Right.
Like, we were living it, dude. We were like, the leads are weak, you're weak. Like, I mean, we were literally living that life like every day, right? Guys would come, other loan officers would be answering the phone like, oh, these leads suck. We'd be like, you suck.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just do better.
It's not the leads, it's your follow-up, it's your scripting, it's your understanding of the product that you're putting out there.
We all had the same leads, right? We were all getting the same calls. So why is one guy consistently better than another, right? It's not that one guy's that much luckier than the other.
Right.
I promise it's not.
Luck is only a finite option of anything, right?
It's a very small part of it.
Right.
Right.
But that's opportunity and preparation. If you're practicing your scripts, if you're understanding the product, if you know your follow-up process, right?
If you're disciplined to stay committed.
So what was it like? Did you already have that discipline?
Here's the thing with me, maybe I had like an irrational amount of confidence for whatever reason.
Perfect.
I don't know why, but I just was like, I could do this, right?
Yeah.
Like put me on the phone. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to close. And I probably like the luckiest I was is that a lot of the rejection didn't faze me like it did others. So for me, it was like, if you told me, right, hey, it's going to take you 10 no's to get a yes, I'd be like, okay, bet, like that's awesome. Let me get those first 9 real quick. Then that yes is coming right now, right? Where so many people get defeated by those early no's that they don't know how close they are to that yes because they're still focused on that no. So for me, again, it was some of that I think was kind of natural, just like this resiliency and confidence and competitiveness that I probably gained a lot through athletics and just, facing adversity at an early life and being like, that's not my destiny. Like mine is greater. So, and then like, dude, I would be in the office and it was crazy because we were on this call rotation. And if you missed your call, you went back to the end of the line. And I would see these guys that get a deal and they're like, they're out 2-3 hour lunch, whatever it took. And I would be like, how can I take my lunch when most people are in the office so that I'm not missing calls, and then be in the office when the least amount of people are in the office so I can get the most calls, right?
Playing chess.
That's how my mind worked.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm going to take my lunch, I'm going to get into the office super early. Nobody's going to be there, so I'll have an opportunity for more calls. I'll take my lunch early as people are just coming in. I'll take a break. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm eating. If the calls were ringing, I was eating at my desk, but it is smart to separate yourself, have a mental break, and then come back. So I was always thinking, like, how do I give myself as many opportunities to succeed as I can?
And where do you think you got that from?
You mean just like the competitive nature?
Yeah.
Some of it's natural. Some of it literally was like, as a kid being told, that you couldn't do it. And I just was always like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, all right. Even people close to me telling me like, hey, that you're not meant to have these nice things, or you're not meant to, to achieve these things, and being like, all right, like, maybe you think that, but I don't, right? Like I had this inherent belief, like I said, irrational confidence. I don't know why I had it, but I believed that I was destined for something bigger. No matter what I was doing, I was like, I can do that.
Did you have somebody early in your life that may have helped instill that?
I get asked that, and I don't think there was like one major thing or one major person. A big role model for me was my grandfather. It was my dad's dad, and I had kind of an interesting relationship with my father. So I was raised predominantly by single mother. So, and dad was kind of in and out. Dad had his own issues, right? He had trouble maturing, maybe we could say. He didn't want to give up partying, early enough. And then he got that partying caused him to have some health trouble and some problems in his life. But I had my grandfather, who was his father, who really took on a big role as a male influence for me. And he was the type of guy who was successful. He had nice cars. Man, I just remember he always had dope cars, dude. He had a Cadillac, he had a Corvette, he had these old schools, and and I mean, again, he lived relatively above modest, but it was like he had a pool, and so even when other people might say like, oh, hey, he's living a normal life, for me it was like, nah, man, he's the definition of success for me, right? He's got a pool at home.
Right.
He's got a Cadillac. Like, that dude is doing it. And he had a smooth way, right, about him, carried himself a certain way, had a certain confidence, like a way that he entered a room, told a joke, right, captured people. And so that was kind of like the definition of a guy I wanted to be like.
Very nice. And I know we were talking at the Niners game last year when we went, and then, the people around that knew him, right, and that know you through him, like generations of Niner fans with us at the tailgate talking. And
my grandfather was huge in that, right? So he had, that was the other cool thing, and how we grew such a close bond, is he had season tickets to the Kings, went to, early old Arco.
Yeah.
So I'm, talk about patience and dedication. Become a Kings fan, right?
Yes. That's resiliency right there,
resiliency, right? That's loyalty.
Epitome of loyalty and resiliency.
And then, the Niners is the same way. He had, and I mean, I grew up early 80s, so Niners were awesome. Talk about having an early first love, right? It was the Niners for me. And so being able to go to those games with my grandfather, meet all those people. And, in some ways I was a super prideful thing for my grandpa. I was the oldest grandson that he had. So I was the first one to get to experience, going to games with him and meeting his clients and meeting, the people close to him. So got to experience, man, some awesome, games, playoff games, do all that cool stuff. But then also spend hours tailgate parties, meeting all these people. And you talked about like, Eddie Bell, who literally moved to California.
He was a Bills fan, right?
He's from North Carolina.
North Carolina.
So, didn't really have an NFL team. Yeah. Came to a game. My grandfather teased him, bought him a Niner jacket, and was like, "You just became a Niner fan."
Right.
And then ever since then, he was like, and we don't know a bigger Niner fan than Eddie. He goes to 4 or 5 road games a year, goes to every home game.
He's dedicated.
Dedicated, raised his son in that environment. So, really cool. I have a lot of those people, like that kind of came up through that way, getting to do that stuff. My grandfather was also the president of the Sacramento 49ers Booster Club.
Wow.
Which was something that was late 70s, early 80s. He's has some cool stories, pictures. He picked up Joe Montana from the airport in his car before Joe was anybody. There's pictures of me sitting on players' laps when I was a baby and stuff like that. We got a bunch of cool footballs, that we have, memorabilia. So stuff like that, which is the cool memories. And like, it's funny because when the Niners were moving from Candlestick to Levi, and there was, I'm not gonna lie, like I was like, man, especially at that time, I was like, this is expensive. Like, do I want to do it? And you had to buy those builder licenses, which is a freaking scam, right? It's like, oh, you got to buy this and then you get to buy the tickets. It's like, come on, man. I've been my family's 3rd generation season ticket holder, and I got to buy a license to buy a ticket. But really what it came down to for me was like, I can't let this die with me, right? Like, I got to give my son the opportunity to decide if he wants to carry on and go to Niner games and do that, right?
Yeah.
But he gets that. He gets the right to make that choice, not me. And I'm not going to force him to be like, this is in our family. You have to be a Niner fan and go to games. He'll make that choice. Luckily, he is a Niner fan and he likes going to games, but still, I wasn't going to have it die with me, right? I wasn't going to make that choice generationally deep to say, it's not in the budget anymore. You just got to make it in the budget, man.
Right. Build it in. Work hard for it.
Out, man.
So you got to watch your grandfather, like having the relationship with your dad and everything, but you had another male role model, an integral part of your life, and watching
100%,
him.
Man. He helped me get my first car when I was 16. And I was on the first, like, real tough times that I had to face adversity was when he passed away. I was 16, junior in high school. Again, he had just helped me get a car. So it's probably 4 or 5 months after that. He passed away, not sick, just randomly, literally at his house, heart attack, dead, and so that was like the first time where I was like, whoa, wait a minute, like this is a big thing. You're 16, you're at an impressionable age. You feel like you got somebody that you can confidently lean on as a male role model, and now you don't. That was big. That's a big void, to fill for a young man. I feel
it for you right now, man.
Yeah. That was a tough one. You know what, dude? I'm so lucky that I had at that time were really strong coaches in my life, athletic coaches. Like, I have one to this day who's literally the godfather of my kids, Ken Munguia. He just retired after coaching high school baseball for over 30 years.
Wow.
And, I had him as somebody who really,
kind of
gave a shit about a young man who sometimes wasn't consistently making the best choices, wasn't, but still there to be like, hey, you can do better, right? Who can hold you accountable, who can tell you, you're not maybe what other people are telling you that you are.
Yeah, man, that's deep, dude. And you still have a relationship with him, godfather. You
talk to him probably at least once a week via text or a phone call.
Yeah.
He's busy, man. He's been coaching, so it's hard to catch him during the season.
Yeah.
Go to any game I can to see him, stop by his practice, stop by his house on Sundays. But I'm excited that, he'll have this journey. He's excited to get to watch my son play baseball this summer and have some more free time. So yeah, it's really cool and exciting to kind of, I feel like, get him back a little bit and have him, involved with my son's journey too.
That's incredible. I think like it's community. It takes a village to raise just one child, right? And
yeah, it's so true. Like, I don't know, and maybe you would agree with this, but I have a teenage boy, and no matter what you say as a father, sometimes it helps to come from somebody else. That was true with me, and it's true with my son, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you're right. Like we don't put enough emphasis on these other male role models that that children have, and how critical they are, and how influential they can be, to somebody's upbringing.
Well, I even know like some of our friends, or even my personal family or whatever, if I'm talking, right, it'll go to a place, but if that message is received from somebody else and it's the same message, it can be taken way deeper. And you're like, oh wait, this person isn't right next to me. Their voice isn't drowned out by all the noise of everyday communication. And somebody leans in and just whispers the same thing. It's like, oh,
it'll hit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally agree.
Relationships are super key, man. And so you go through this very trying time at 16, man. I can only imagine what that was like for you. What happened after that, man? What'd you do?
Those days are blurred, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't lie and say I could put myself today in my 16-year-old mind's head, but there was some point, in high school where I kind of made a decision, like, okay, hey, I want to probably start to evolve into some different crowds and become a more respectable young man. And again, a lot of the influences helped me. Doesn't mean that I routinely made the right choices, because I routinely did not. Right. But again, I was maybe lucky enough to have a very understanding mother, who was patient with me along my journey. And I had some close friends who I still have to this day, right? Who would look out for me, and we would look out for each other. And again, we would pursue the stuff we were passionate about. With back then was, partying, baseball, girls, whatever it was, cars. We kind of went through that together, matured a little bit, and made it out, man. I graduated high school, which was an accomplishment for some back then. Not all of us did. Right. Some of us took a different path and a different route. So from there, it was pursue athletics. At least that's what I thought, because that was my identity, man. Like I thought that's what I was good at. That's what I could do, and I just wasn't mature enough to be like a collegiate athlete, bro. Like if I'm being really honest, like you could blame opportunities, you could blame all of this. The truth is, I didn't have what it took from a mindset maturity level to be like, okay, you're going to wake up and do weight training. You're going to handle your business in the classroom. You're going to go to practice, and you're going to do all that before you focus on the partying and the girls and the hanging out with
you. You're committed to
and the making money and all the other stuff. I wanted to do all those things.
Yeah.
But I just didn't have them in the right order. Right. And so again, to be an athlete at a higher level, that's got to be first, right? And I didn't have that. And if I could go back, that's one of the regrets I have is, man, I wish I would have pursued it from a more mature mindset. But I just wasn't there yet, right? So
that's okay.
Something I discussed with my son, right? Yeah. Is like you don't have to have that want and desire, but if you do, like you gotta be all in, like you really do, because they keep getting better, right? And like that pool keeps shrinking, and like the people that keep going are the ones that want it more than the ones that don't. And so then at this point, right, I'm probably 19 years old. My grandfather's passed away. My grandfather was self-employed, had a business. He was a meat commodities broker, which is pretty cool. He sold Australian, New Zealand meat, which my father was now running that business. I kind of rekindled a good relationship with my dad as I became an older male and more mature. I understood maybe what he went through as a young male, and he wasn't there for me as a kid. And so when you're as a young child, all you see is my dad's not here. I'm pissed about it. Mm-hmm. And then as you become older, you start to maybe realize what your dad was going through and why he wasn't there. So I think I'll give myself credit for evolving and understanding more about, some of the struggles that my dad faced. And so wanting to have a good relationship with him. And so he was like, hey, can you help me? I need some help at the business. I felt like, man, it's my grandfather's business. Like, of course, right? And with the premise of you can be flexible around your baseball schedule and you could do all that. And so I started working in the family business, let's just say, right? So I was on the phones at a young age, at 19 years old, getting cussed out by old school people, getting helped by guys like Eddie, who I'd known since a kid, going to games.
Yeah.
And so it was cool experience. Again, fearless. I didn't know. I didn't really care, if I was doing stuff wrong. My name was street and they knew who I was and they were like, oh, Nick, hey, and so it was a cool vibe. But again, I was supposed to be focusing first on sports and doing this and that and going to school. And my priorities were, if I could work a little bit more, I can make a little bit more money. And that makes partying a little bit easier and more fun. And so again, my priorities got a little bit off track. And then, man, randomly enough, my dad had his second heart attack. And literally there's nobody else there to run the business. And my dad's in the hospital. So I show up, again, 19 years old, not really a mature 19.
Just 19.
Hey, man, figure this out. Keep this business up. That was your grandfather's business, who was your idol growing up and the guy you looked up to and the guy who helped provide for you. Figure out how to run his business. And I'm like, okay. And that's really when I had to grow up, right? I had to say like, all right, hey, a lot of this stuff can wait. I got to figure this out. And so I was literally showing up at like the hospital with a notary, getting added to the bank account and doing all these different things so I could pay the business's bills and handle the accounting and handle, bookkeeping, like all of these things that were beyond the scope of what I was currently capable of. But again, as a lot of people have told me and what I truly believe in, like, you really don't truly know what you're capable of until you're pushed in a corner or until you're put in a situation and you're capable of a lot more. And so that for me was the first aha moment in my life where I was like, okay, like if you don't have a choice but to do this, you can step up and actually do it. And so again, that was probably the best thing that ever happened in terms of learning how to be involved in a business and taking those skills that I learned like literally on the fly and developing systems on my own because I literally had to, right? And then applying them and mastering them and duplicating them and doing all these different things. Again, I carry those sort of skills and those different traits forward all the time. It's still with me.
That's incredible, dude. One, I want to say congratulations on your empathy and compassion for your father. Coming from curiosity and understanding what he went through, right? That helps you be a better human being, right? Like, people have bad days, people have bad years, people have bad decades, right? They get caught up in this trap in their own mental cognition. And unless you come from curiosity and understanding, you would never have that relationship. And you may not have been at that point in the business, helping grandfather's business continue to run and operate, and what it's done for you today.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like, look, addiction, like that's a tough, crazy thing, right? Like, and that was a big issue for him. And he, and again, I don't think he wanted to be involved in that for however long he was in it. It was just something that, encompassed him and probably spun out of control. Mm-hmm. And again, until you become mature enough to understand, it's hard. I wouldn't expect a kid to get that, right? Or understand that, They're used to being let down, and that's all they know.
Right. I had a similar thing with my mother, right? She's, 19, 20 years off of meth now. And when my real parents split up, I was 12. And I'm the oldest of 4. And I just thought my mom abandoned me.
Yeah.
Now we have a relationship. We're good. Like, she talks to me about some stuff, and she's going on 20 years sober. So, like, I remember she gave me my favorite number is 7. She gave me her 7-year chip. I was on R&R from Iraq or from the military. I was home visiting.
7 years sober.
7 years sober. She gave me her 7-year chip because that was my favorite number. She's like, "Here you go, son."
Dope, man. Right?
And I gave her one of my Army coins. I was like, "I'm proud of you, Mom."
Yeah,
like,
what a cool thing.
You never really understand until you get older. And just I commend you, dude, because it does help with relationships later on. Like, if you're gonna put your ego, or you're going to put your pride or your thoughts on somebody else, that's where we get into trouble. We come from a judgment zone, from a preconceived idea, and never put their shoes on.
Yeah, so true. So true. I have gotten so much better about that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think you're right. Like, as a society, we always immediately form an instant judgment. And most of the time, it's based on not even having enough information to form an opinion, yet we do it.
Yeah, we throw our opinions online like they're free or valued.
All I read
they
was
are
the
free.
headline,
They're just not. Yeah.
But what a creep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, well, wait a minute. And again, I'm not trying to exonerate any of the creeps out there.
No.
But my point is just like, that is something that I will tell you, me personally, and thanks for recognizing it, is like, I do make it a point now to say, hey, wait a minute, before I perceive what somebody else's opinion is of a situation, I'm going to try to gather more information and make my own.
Right. And I think that's the best thing if society wanted to grow is to do that. Your opinion isn't valued. It's not, especially if you don't have a 100% picture. And you never really will, because there's 3 sides to the story: their side, your side, and the truth.
Absolutely.
And how do you get that?
Emotional maturity, though, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's one of the toughest things, I think, for men to understand is emotional maturity.
Right.
It's one hard thing for me to deal with. I still work on it.
Yeah.
But like understanding, like, okay, maybe I need to swallow my pride. I need to bite my tongue and not push back, because by nature, right, I'm a competitor. I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
And I had somebody smart tell me, like, no. Emotional maturity is more masculine than the guy who can't shut up and eggs on the fight, right? The guy, like, that shows a greater level of intelligence. You're a stronger man because you're willing to say, okay, I'm going to, disengage from this confrontation rather than push it and keep it going. Again, not an easy thing.
Not an easy thing. What do you want the end result to be? Because if you want somebody to hear your side, you have to understand theirs. You have to come from compassion and empathy and understanding before throwing gasoline on the fire, But what an incredible opportunity for you to rekindle a relationship and have that with him.
Sure.
And then so you go on, you take on the business, you're doing the notary in the
we're just
hospital.
grinding, man. I'm figuring it out. I'm making sales, right? And then I'm processing those deals, and I'm learning. I made some money, which was cool.
No plan B. This is only plan A.
I had nothing else, man, right? So at this point, my dad starts to recover, He actually has a heart transplant. Believe it or not, they call us and they say, hey, come down to Sutter, where he was. Come down to Sutter and say goodbye. Like he's too sick to get on any list, or basically we're giving up. And they had put a bed in his room for my stepmom. They were like, literally, this may be the last night if you want to sleep in here with him.
Oh wow.
And I remember thinking like, man, this is crazy. Like, and I went in there and I said goodbye to my dad. Like somehow, I don't even know how, he had somebody on his side, some advocate fought to get him transferred to Stanford. So they airlifted him from Sutter to Stanford, and within 2 or 3 months, he was well enough to get on a transplant list. And then within a few months after that, he got a heart transplant.
Praise God, man.
Stanford will always, like, it is such a remarkable place. Like, we don't even realize the close proximity we are to, like, how much cool stuff happens at Stanford. And again, I would have never, I didn't even understand it, what was happening. I think I was like 22 years old, right? Of the level, the bureaucracy of insurance and this and that. And that's what was blocking him forever. And, all of these different things. And who knows what a heart transplant cost him. I'm not here to, have that conversation. The airlift, I'm sure, cost a fortune and everything else. But long story short, my dad actually came back to work. So he came back to his business. And at that point, I was probably, I think that's when I was like 23, 24. Realized, one, there probably wasn't enough income for us to make 2 livings anymore, especially the lifestyle that I wanted to continually progress at. And I wanted a new challenge, man. Like I didn't, as much as I wanted to extend my grandfather's legacy, like I wanted to kind of have my own path in life and have my own interests. And there was like, I just felt like there was a cap and a limit on that business and long term, right? And I remember my dad being one of the people that was like, why are you, like, don't leave. Like, you're not, like, literally, you're not capable, man, right? Like, you have no college degree, you're not smart enough to do something else. Like, why? And I was like, it's cool. Like, I'm fine, right? Like, just those immediately didn't listen, right?
Those family knives, they mean well, but man, they can hurt.
And again, to your credit, to his point, he had never done anything.
He's looking out for you, his son.
In his mind, I was like him. He's like, I'm not capable of doing anything else. I was given this business, and it gave me a life. And so I need to do the same for you. I need to help you. I need to protect you.
Right.
And I was like, nah, let me go. Right? Like, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna figure this out. And it's funny because I had a few friends that were just getting in mortgage. And these were the meatheads and the dipshits, bro. And I was like, wait a minute. How much are you making?
This guy?
Right?
This guy's doing this?
If you can make that, what could I make? Right? And that was literally my mentality back then.
Yeah.
Is there was 2 things that I said to myself. I said, 1, if he can do it, I can do it. And 2, I said, I want to meet the best guy. If you're not the best guy, who's the best guy? I met the best guy, and I go, okay, how much money are you making? And I forget at the time, he's making maybe 30, 40 grand a month. Right?
It's a good year.
Again, I was like, holy crap.
Right.
A month. And I go, okay, if you're the best, you can't be twice as good at me as anything, right? Nobody's twice as good as me.
Right.
So if you can make 40 grand, I can make 20 grand. And that was my mentality.
Dude, that's a great mentality.
I was like, literally, there's nobody that's 2 times better than me in anything business related. And so that was it. I was like, okay, then half of what you make is my benchmark. That's my low end.
Yep.
And I'm going to do that. Right? And so that was it. That was when I was like, okay, I'm going to do mortgage. Like, I made the decision right then. Like, I'm going to figure out how to do mortgage. I don't know how. And then some people were like, oh, real estate, this, that. And I was like, honestly, man, I don't really want to drive people around in the car. So I was like, not doing that. I was good at numbers. Math came easy to me. I was terrible in a lot of subjects, but math was a natural thing that, again, came pretty easy, and I didn't hate as far as the school subject went. So I was like, sounds like mortgage.
Sounds like mortgage. Yep.
And so that, again, that's kind of how I transitioned from there. I went into the boiler room, right? Grinded that out, reinvented in the later years. Took on the real estate, the community, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. That emotional intelligence, man. You've been working with buyers for 20 years.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence with buyers. Buying $500,000, $1 million properties.
An emotional transaction,
Every
friend.
single client you've worked with has been a buyer. Where on my side, I got buyers and sellers, investors. Investors, if the numbers make sense, great.
We're with a lot of homeowners, refinancing, but
right. But
for purchases, we're buyers,
right? In form of those transactions. Refinance is always typically pretty good, right? You're lowering your mortgage rate. You're doing this.
Yeah.
You might be pulling out some money.
Easier conversations.
Those are easier conversations rather than the purchase, right? So
that's why I stayed away from it.
Right.
When I was early on, I was like, I don't want the stress of this purchase and this emotional experience. I wasn't ready for that. Right. My call was, you're already in your house. If I close a week late, whatever.
You're already
It's just
there.
a week late of you getting your money. It's not disrupting your life. Right. Whereas I had these stories of these guys doing purchases, and they're like, the moving trucks are there and we didn't close. And I was like, no thanks. Right? I'm not ready for that. Like, I'm not, you're not calling me because the moving trucks didn't come. I don't want that.
Cut your teeth on the refinance portion where they're already
Look, I wasn't mature enough to handle that yet.
Right.
Like,
I
knew that about myself.
We're going to knock you down from a 5 to a 4.5. This is what it's going to look like.
Back then, it was like, hey, all right, how do you stretch my payment out with how much money can I get? And we were turning and burning. I mean, look, they weren't good loans.
Right.
The moral capacity situation back then was delicate.
It was different than today.
I don't think I could do it at a different stage in my life.
I
was dumb enough to understand it, but not dumb enough to put myself in that situation. So I was like, hey, this is what they want. Not me, somebody else.
I found in my life, naivety has worked in my favor.
Yeah.
Right? Just, I jump in right before COVID starts. COVID hits the ground. I have agents around me not coming for months. I was back in the office 2 weeks later making calls. Right. And so cut my teeth on a time where naivety served me well. Yeah. When I was in the service, right? I was 18 when I went in. Bro, I couldn't do that at 35, dude.
Yeah,
basic training in AIT, dude, I'd be like, nope.
Right.
Like, I'm good. But I do have the experience to know that I wouldn't do it. Right. Sometimes I'll get the itch, be like, dude, like that SEAL stuff is tough, dude. You could probably do it.
Reinvent yourself.
Right? You could totally reinvent. Nah, man, I'm good. That water gets a little cold for me.
Absolutely.
I got a 5-minute cold plunge. I'm good, dude.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. So now you see yourself mentoring and coaching. I get to see you. I get to work alongside you and help others come up in this industry, brand new and ready to build,
man.
ready to run.
Fly.
Yeah. So what's the most important part that you think you can offer someone like Blake or these other people coming to work for you?
Yeah.
What's the most
It's
important
a combination of a lot of things. I think real life experience is something that you can't fake. Right? Like, that's just the thing, is there's a lot of these managers, right? But, have they walked the walk? And I will tell you, for me, coming up, I would always look to discredit people because I just was like, these guys, they were younger guys, like, oh, I'm a non-originating manager. And I'm like, well, why aren't you originating? Oh, well, I was crushing it. I made so much. And I'm like, nobody walks away, right, from a great originating career. So what was it, right? Like, you couldn't hack it, but yeah, you're going to tell me how to hack it?
Those that can't do teach, right?
Right?
That's what we're taught.
Right? So that was a big part for me. Now, again, this is going to, I don't mean to like discredit those who serve in a management role and that's their passion. those people are better than me. They have more patience than me. I would tell you that what I have to offer is legitimate, real world like experience from a producer that's done it at a very high level that I think still has a really awesome process, client experience, knowledge. So that first and foremost is that, right? Like, I'm going to put you in the best position because it's the position I put myself in.
Right.
Right? Like, you'll succeed because I'm not going to let you fail. That's the big part of it. Now, the harder part is, again, when you get to the level that I'm at and you're bringing up people that are young, the mentality of those people is, I'll just ask you. I know the answers to the questions that they have. I got to walk that balance of how much I give it to them, how much I make them go find it.
That's what, I was just talking this morning in my Band of Brothers group from church, right? We meet at Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 7:00, and we're talking a little bit about therapy. And a therapist's job isn't designed to give you the answer.
Right.
They're helping you find a way for you to deliver the answer that you need, right? And I find that in my coaching and mentorship, right? It's like they got to ask good questions to get the answer, right? Those questions have to be profound enough to be like, okay, let's sit down and have an actual conversation about this.
Hey, you might run into a unique situation that isn't discoverable and may only be found from somebody who's lived it.
Right.
I love those questions.
Those are not, hey, what's this process here, right? Like,
hey, where do I find the guideline for? It's like, I do know. I have the answer.
Where would you? My answer would be, where do you think you'd find that?
Yeah. Hey, where have you looked?
Right.
Where have you looked already? Oh, nowhere?
We just start there.
Why don't you try looking and then
cross the start line,
and then
so we can get
And I get it, right? It's a mentality of shortcut, right? This is an argument in my house with my wife. Where is the whatever? And she's like, have you looked? And I'm like, well, you put it away. I don't want to waste the time looking.
That's killer.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I get it. They're trying to say like, well, it's more efficient for me just to ask you.
It's the teenager being told, hey, can you grab the salt out of the pantry? They go in there, they glaze, can't find it, right? Can't find it. Well, did you look?
Get it for you.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. I have that struggle too. But but retaining the information comes when you seek it and you discover it.
Well, even like I'm heavy in my church and all that stuff. Like even in the Bible, it says, seek and you shall find, like knock and the door will be open. So go search for the answer, not just ask for the answer. It doesn't say ask, right? Seek and you will find, right? And I've been very fortunate with the people that have helped raise me in this industry and everything like that. Finding answers on the contractual side of things. When it comes to negotiating or conversing with clients, actually having a conversation. And what that means is listen twice and ask questions, right? And then listen some more, and then listen some more, and then find out where you can actually solve the problem they're looking for that answer, right? And most people right now, like everything is click, get an answer. And there's no
Gifted
actual...
and cursed.
Right, it is a gift. We're super blessed to have
lucky that we have
Yeah.
that technology at our fingertips, but man, has it...
Did the research stop, dude?
It stunted our ability, right?
Yeah.
Like, when are we going to find the end of the internet?
Right. Right. We had this conversation again this morning. It was like, we're trying to create heaven on earth and doing a horrible job. We're failing as humans, right? Like in a very big objective or subjective point of view, right? If you're hot, turn on the heater. If you're cold, turn on the AC, right? Instantly. What does that do to really? Right?
I'm always comfortable though.
Comfort is a killer,
Yeah,
And I see true. Like through your life, like some of your struggles, the uncomfortable stages, 16, losing your grandfather, your dad on his deathbed, thrown into the fire on a business, right? That's uncomfortable. And what you've learned from that, dude, you've been in this industry 20 years. Just 20 years. And most people fail inside the first and second year, right? And
I think they quit more than they fail.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
Well, you fail because you quit.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So that's why I'm labeling that, because you don't fail if you keep going.
For sure.
Right? You could, like a child learning to walk. Just because they stumble, you're not going to be like, oh, you're a failure.
Yeah.
You know?
Never walk.
Yeah, no, you just don't have the leg strength or coordination as a 1-year-old to really figure it out. Now you're 20 years old and you can't walk. Now that comfortability stage of having mom and dad bring you everything is a problem.
Absolutely.
Right? I know we put that at a very soft level there, but if you're living at home in your 20s and 30s and you're going to sit there and give an opinion on somebody that's living a life, dude, like, what are you doing?
It's a daily struggle, right?
Dude,
Again,
yeah.
we talk about I have 2 teenage kids, and I feel like I'm, the point you made, I feel like I improved through adversity and figuring out myself, but yet I'm not going to, put my kids in situations they don't need to be in, but at the same time, how do I help them if I always provide the answers and always provide a safe spot? Like, I love to put my kids in situations.
Well, we talked about what your goal is for your kids and these other properties and stuff like that, keeping them close. But what do they want to do,
Yeah, I mean, they don't know yet.
Yeah.
15 years old, you don't know what you want to do. But when he faces adversity, I'm not quick, and my daughter too, at 13, like, I'm not quick to be like, oh, that's okay. Who's the coach? Who's the teacher? Let me call him, right?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of parents do, is it's like, oh, you're not playing as much as you want? I'm going to call the coach and I'll get you on a different team, or let's transfer schools, or let's do this, let's do that. It's like, what are you teaching your kid, man?
I know of stories of kids going to school in certain school districts where they're decent. And because they're failing or close to failing, they'll switch schools to an easier school. Right? They'll switch it to an easier school, and then they're like, oh, my son's getting A's and B's now, or my daughter's getting A's and B's now. It's like, well, what's the curriculum like? How challenged are they? Right? Because if you're not challenged, I think there's a real problem.
I just think, I mean, to your point though, I think the bigger problem there is parents solving the kids' problems and challenges.
What's that kid going to do?
Stay at that school and figure out how to raise your game to the curriculum that's in front of it, right? Not lower the curriculum.
Not lower the standard.
So that you can pass. It's raise yourself.
You just move the goalposts forward.
Bingo.
You just move the goalposts forward.
Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better.
Right. How long is a football field? It's 100 yards. They don't move it forward for a shorter field goal or for a shorter touchdown. They don't. They
can't.
And I think we need more adversity. Like in a
100%.
great way. We're going to find out, like, with whatever happens, everybody, or 50% of the population this November is going to lose their mind. And it doesn't change a thing, right? Mow your grass, make your bed, go to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you do want to change, get involved. But like, I don't know, we can go down a whole rabbit train on society and all that. Then that's not the goal here.
Well,
but like,
I mean, on that topic, like, I would just hope that, I don't know why such a dissension, right? You're either one or the other. To me, that's not what society should be about.
How prejudiced is that?
Yeah.
Is that notion that just because somebody thinks different than you, that they're wrong? Like, you're just labeling them on a literal checkbox. Like, that's all it is. If you're
I don't like you.
If you're voting electronically, you just click a button and it fills in the circle for you. And because you vote one way or the other, there's a prejudice on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, the whole system is extremely flawed.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not capable of fixing it.
You have me neither, dude. Me neither. But you have 2 teenage children.
I do.
Growing up in this kind of society, man. What do you do to have those conversations with them to help them feel okay and feel positive and be a good person in this world? Because they're young adults. They're not. For me, kids, like, you're raising young adults, and how much you comfort them or put them in this little box as a safety net, like you talked about, changing schools.
I mean, the The technology component is by far the biggest obstacle and hurdle and struggle. I did not have that growing up, and I can't imagine what a 15-year-old me would be like with something so powerful in the palm of my hand and at my fingertips every single day. I would probably be as distracted as they are. So I do try to empathize. Like, I'm not one of those that's like, kids these days, you know, because it's like, kids these days, man. Like, that's a tough thing to overcome. What I try to be is really, really honest with my kids. And sometimes that goes over well, sometimes it doesn't, right? And I'm honest with them about how they're doing. You're doing good. You could do better, right? Whether that's school, whether that's sports, whether that's showing up at home.
Chores or treating mom right, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Your attitude, involving your friendships, your relationships, how you're treating others. Be honest with them about the real challenges that are out there, right? And I try to put them in situations where they'll see other sides outside of a bubble of the lifestyle that I can afford to put them in, but I choose not to for their own good.
We had a good conversation last year at the tailgate where we were talking about addiction, you know, and communicating with your son about that. Like, hey, this is a real problem.
The history in the family.
Genetically.
Right?
Like,
There's
a code.
Look at your grandfather. Look at your great uncle. I mean, you know, like it's there. And it's something that I knew existed, and I had to make choices to avoid that lifestyle. And I need you to do the same, right? And you're at a young age when it's impressionable and stuff's out there, and I know you want to experiment, and I know you want to. And my son's more like me than he's not like me, right? He's not like the square kid who's whatever. He's curious.
Yeah.
And he's out. He's gonna, you know, have friends that put him in awkward positions like I did.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that. And I'm not gonna control his life and say you can't hang out with him, and you know, and I gotta know where you are at all times. His mom can try, that's fine. I'll let them have their relationship. That's a big part of the dynamic too, is how do I, as a father of teenagers, support my wife in her opinion, but also make sure that my kids know what my personal opinion on things is, and have some balance there, and be able to accept that we don't always agree. We're going to be on the same page about big decisions, but we might not always agree.
Right.
Right? Like, my wife is hardcore academics. Like, and that's great. I'm not here to say, like, son, you know, don't try in school, but you can be successful without succeeding in academics in high school. I'm living proof.
Right.
Right?
I graduated high school, bro. That's hand up.
So, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not going to lie to my son.
Yeah.
Like, that would be hypocritical of me to tell him, like, you better get straight A's in high school or your life's going to be terrible. Because I don't believe that.
Right.
So I'm not gonna tell him that, right? But I can be honest with him and tell him, hey, this is important to your mother, right? And it is a good thing for you. It teaches you a level of discipline. It's gonna teach you a level of responsibility. And, you know, it's not a bad thing for you to succeed in school. It's a good thing, right? Let's figure out how to overcome. Let's figure out how to make this challenge. The other thing is I will be honest with them and telling them, like, I didn't have a cool college experience. That looks fun, right? Like, look at going to these campuses, going to these games and stuff. I'm like, man, if I were you, I'd be like, I want to do that.
Right. That looks fun.
Like,
my brother graduated Oklahoma State last year. We went out there, saw a football game, saw a baseball game. Man, it was sick.
Shit looks fun.
It was fun, dude.
If I'm 18, reverse, and I had a chance, I'm like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And so I tell him that.
So you're balancing some incredible things right now when we look at the big picture of it. Your businesses, right? The construction on your home, your relationship with your wife, and your relationship with your kids, and mentoring and coaching and stuff like that. How do you connect with your wife on such a level? You guys have been married how long now?
14 years. This will be year 15 coming up.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, man.
And so what does that look like for you two on your communication? Where do you stand, and how do you like you said,
always improve.
That's number one. That's number one, right? We can always do better.
Yeah, man. I'm really fortunate to have a really strong, independent partner.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's frowned upon, but I'm not a person that wants to control my wife. I don't want to control her opinion. I don't want to control her environment. Like I want her to be her.
Right.
And I want to, live within, that world of us, again, being able to each do our own thing and each have our own opinions and everything else. So I fully support that. My wife's way smarter than me in many, many fields and when it comes to many things. I struggle with communicating with my wife in certain areas for whatever reason. I will acknowledge that it's an area of improvement that I personally will tell you I want to continue to work on and want to continue to get better at. And that's hard for me to say when I feel like communication in business is my strength. If you ask me, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, what's one of the things you do the best? Hey, I'm going to communicate this young buyer. They don't know what they want. I'm going to tell them what they want. I'm going to paint this picture for them. I'm going to communicate with them to a level that exceeds their expectations. Yet, how come I can't communicate with, the partner in my life?
The one that's going to be there till the end.
It's a very hard thing. And to be clear, I met my wife at a younger age, and a lot of the mistakes I made in my life, my wife has stood by me. Mm-hmm. My wife has supported me. She's held me accountable. She's picked me up, and vice versa, I hope.
Right.
But it is something that I will acknowledge as a shortcoming. I need to get better at. I think in some ways, not to let myself off the hook, but some days you pour so much in that by the time it gets to there, your cup's a little bit empty, right? And it's like I don't have what it takes to continue to elevate this. It's not fair to her. I'm not saying that it's justified or right, but yeah, I mean, again, I do it from a place of honesty, and I tell her, like I just told you, right? Like, hey, I want to communicate better with you, but sometimes I'm just limited. Like, I'm fried.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally understand.
I'm out here grinding. I'm going to practice. I'm doing the stuff with the kids. I get home. We're eating dinner. We're doing this. We're doing that. And then, it's like, hey, we have to sit here and look at these 10 types of, knobs for the faucets or something. And I'm like, just pick what you want, right? Like, I just don't got it in me.
I do that frequently.
I can't muster the strength to look at these things, right? So again, I have I'm lucky enough to have a partner that does a good job of understanding the complex person that I am, and more often than not, it accepts that.
I love that
about
dude.
me.
I love that. I think having a great partner, like you said, you're going on 15 years, right? 2 awesome kids academically and in sports, right? I met them, like they're top-notch kids, man. Go to your office and your girl's doing her homework. Hey, here you go. Do you need anything? Do you need a bag of chips? Do you need some water? Like, there's snacks over here for you. Get your homework done, right?
That's
like, I love that, dude. Like, I haven't been blessed with kids yet, which is a blessing right now, right? But like I said last year, like, hey, dude, when this time comes, man, I'm going to lean heavily on you. I'm going to ask some questions.
Man,
right?
having kids will make you want to become a better person. Because you got to start to see yourself how you want your kids to see you. And like, so for me, that was probably the best thing to ever happen to me is easily having kids, but also just acknowledging like, man, I got to be the person that I want them to see me as, right? Like I can't fake this.
Right.
Right.
They're at home with you all the time.
Maybe in business.
Right.
Right. And I could pretend to be this great person, but in reality, like in life, as a father, like you can't fake it, man. You got to step up and become that person, right? Because there's no hiding. There's no,
They see everything. At least that's what I'm told, man. They see everything. And they hear every word, see everything.
Yeah. But I mean, again, dude, there is no greater gift, no greater joy, no greater pride, right, than having kids. I mean, hands down, coolest experience, most important thing, most gut-wrenching thing, the hardest thing. I mean, it's all of them. Like, how could one thing encompass, the best times and the worst times? Mm-hmm. But it finds a way to do it.
I love that, man. I so appreciate you. I do admire you for, growing through this industry, right, and maintaining a healthy relationship.
And my kids grew up in this industry.
Being a healthy friend, dude. Like, if I call you, talk about something, right, you are honest, right? I think it's important for us in general as a populace to have those people you can call on, like, hey, dude, like, here's what I'm seeing right now. What are you seeing on this side? Whether it's a transaction, whether it's life or whatever. Like, I really appreciate being able to, buzz you, be like, hey, what's going on, Rich? All right, cool. Let's have a conversation a little bit. Okay, cool. Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? I know some of our conversations aren't that short at all. we just kind of go down this thing, like what we're seeing and hearing and feeling throughout this journey in real estate. But dude, I got to say, I so appreciate you, man. I look up to you as a friend.
Yeah, respect, man. On both sides.
Let's rock and roll, baby. I was curious, man. I do know you're an advocate for learning, right? You just talked about how you can grow with your relationship with your wife and as a father in business and mentoring these people coming up. Curious, was there a book that changed your world or that you'd recommend everybody give a good read?
I'll give you one. Atomic Habits. James Clear. You familiar with it at all?
Yeah, I've read it twice.
Yeah. Love the premise, right? Which is mostly focused on the journey and not the destination, right? It's focused more on the process, not the result. It's focused on 1% improvements, the incremental improvements. In business, I feel like people focus way too much on the attitude and I'm like, what are your habits? Slow down. Show me what you did today, and I'll show you how good you're doing, right? So that's a big one for me, and one that I always, if I feel like I may be drifting off, I'll get back at, and it helped me really work work backwards from what my dream scenario is, right? Hey, this is what I want. Okay, how do I work backwards to work to get it? Because again, I'm lucky enough to tell you that I have never been lucky in business. I have had to earn everything. And so it's created that mindset. And now I have resiliency, right? Because I haven't just been, it hasn't been handed to me. Like, I've had to earn everything in my life. So I look at that truly as a gift now.
I love it, man. That is a great book, Atomic Habits. Yeah, definitely recommend myself as well. And one piece of advice that you give anybody in the world right now?
I would focus on whatever whatever is resonating with you negatively, it is for just that period of time, right? Like, having a growth mindset and understanding that failure in whatever it is that's happening is not a permanent condition. So I'll send you this, dude. That changed me. It's a study that was done on successful people. And do you know what the most common trait of successful people is? It's not intelligence. It's not good looks. You know what it is?
What's that?
It's grit. So what the heck is grit, right? Grit is like just having this ability to overcome, right? And having an innate just resolve in you. And like they studied, it's crazy, but like they studied like kids in high school who was going to get the best grades. It was the ones with the most grit. They studied the people going into the Naval Academy who were going to become the SEALs. They were the ones that tested the highest on grit, right?
Oh, wow.
It is just like the most successful in business. And so it just came to me like, okay, like you got to realize like, okay, this negative thing is occurring and happening. How do you make sure that that's not going to compound? That's not going to define you, right? You got to know. That's a conversation I have with my kids all the time because they're experiencing stuff that's tough. And I'm like, what you perceive as failure and negative to you at 15 is stuff you're not even going to remember a year or two from now.
Not even going to remember it.
So, you know, like this hardest day, your life is over, right? Again, give it a few months and you won't even remember this feeling that you're having. And that's true in business, man. Like I look back at all the stuff when it was like, oh my God, the industry's changing. I'm never going to make it. I'm not going to be able to evolve. And again, growth mindset, man. Have a growth mindset. Understand failure is not a permanent condition.
I love it, brother, man. I look forward to hanging out, going to these Niner games this year.
Got a big year, man.
We got a big year, baby. Let's go, baby. I appreciate you, man. We'll have you on soon.
Right on.